Hey guys, how's it going? It's Steve with my6subaru.com, and I thought it was about time for us to do a revamped tutorial on sort of an older modification, one that's been around for a while. I'm going to be painting the headlights on my 2004 STI, which has a 2006 front end swap on it. And before I actually do the paint on the entire car, what I wanted to do is I wanted to paint the actual housings on the headlights. And I wanted to do so in gloss black to make them kind of stand out a little bit more, you know, get rid of some of that chrome appearance because I'm not a real big chrome guy, maybe remove the amber as well while I'm at it. And I wanted to go ahead and put together a video tutorial to show you guys, especially those of you who are kind of new to do-it-yourself modifications, how you can do this yourself with a few simple tools and an oven. So, go ahead and follow along with me. I'll show you what exactly you're going to need to do to finish this entire process, and together we can make our headlights look a little bit more sick. Alright. My car might be a little bit different than your guys' just because it is an 04 with an 06 front end swap. However, the premise is pretty much the same, so as long as you are able to pop the hood and whatnot, you should probably be able to see kind of the screws that you need to remove in order to get the headlights themselves out. So just kind of look around a little bit, and to begin with, I'm going to need a socket with a 10 millimeter socket on it. We've got 4 bolts up front here that need to be removed as well. Now I don't have one on my car right now, but there would be a clip on here on the stock car. You can just take a flathead screwdriver here and you can just pop the tab on it. Like this one right here, you just pop the tab and then you can just pull it out. And once it's out, then you should be able to free the headlight. Now, something to keep in mind with this headlight is that in addition to the fasteners that are securing it, there's actually also a kind of a pop-in rivet right over here. It's not really a rivet, but it just helps affix the headlight in the corner here. So when you pop it out, especially for the first time, you might need to pull it pretty hard in order to get it out of there. Mine on in this case is not very hard, so I should be able to just get it right out. Now you got kind of 2 options here. You can either finesse it out like I'm doing with the bumper still connected to it, or you can make life really easy on yourself and you can just remove the bumper. I guess it kind of depends on how much you care about your finish. In my case, it's all unfinished, so I don't care about it at all. Now, with that said, you're going to have 3 clips on the back side of your headlight. And once you get those clips disconnected, you can go ahead and remove the headlight itself from the assembly. There we go. Alright, so here's our headlight out. Now you're just going to go ahead and repeat those steps on the other side. We can repeat the same thing on this side. Basically, you're going to pull out and forward, and if you've got the bumper disconnected, you can use a little leeway there. Here's a little bit of leeway there to get it out. Alright guys, now that we've got the headlights out of the actual enclosure in the car, before we even think about putting them in the oven, first we've got to attend to the screws that actually go around the perimeter of the headlight and connect the ABS housing to the actual clear lens of the headlight. So you're just going to have a standard Phillips head screwdriver, and you're just going to want to go ahead and go around the perimeter of the headlight and remove the screws that are in there. Now it looks like we've got all the ones on this headlight. And since I've got an STI, I've got the HID projectors on mine. I'm going to go ahead and remove the actual ballast unit from this as well. And the oven's not really going to get very hot, and so it's not a necessity, it's more just a personal preference. But again, I would rather just have it out when I actually put them in, so you can choose to remove these or not. That's really your call. there we go. Now our first one's taken care of, it's good to go. For good measure, I'm also going to remove the actual headlights, or the lights on there. Alright, there we go. And again, this is more personal preference rather than necessity. The oven's going to be up just over 200 degrees when we put it in the oven, so it's really not a lot hotter than the environment that these headlights would be in on a regular basis. However, when I'm taking apart headlights, I prefer to remove as much stuff as is possible, because that's just one less thing that you've got to worry about when you're actually separating the ABS from the actual lens itself. So again, that's personal preference. If you don't feel like doing it, you don't necessarily have to do it. It's just the way that I prefer to do it. And so you're able to do it at your own discretion. But this is definitely the way I prefer to go through this process. Now it looks like we're good to go on this one. All of the screws have been removed from the outside of this. I removed the HID ballast from this because these are STI headlights. I removed the different bulbs from here as well, so they're not going to get in the way when I'm swapping all of this out. I'm just going to put them all to the sides somewhere safe where I'm sure that they're not going to get damaged. The STI headlights do, of course, have the leveler unit on them. However, in this case, I'm not actually going to remove the leveler unit because you don't have to. And it's really not going to get in the way when we're taking this apart. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other headlight as well, and then we can get to baking it. Now that we've got our headlights all prepped and ready to go, we've got all the screws out of the back, all the bulbs are out, everything's taken care of there. We're ready to actually put the headlight itself in the oven. Now what I've done is I've preheated this oven to 220 degrees. What we're going to do is we're going to take the headlight and go ahead and put it on a baking sheet, and we're going to put it in the oven. We're going to put it in there for 15 to 20 minutes. What this is going to do is it's actually going to make the silicone that's around the housing in the lens itself, it's going to make it more pliable. And what we'll be able to do then is just pop up the tabs that are around this, and we'll be able to easily pull the lens away from the actual housing. So let's go ahead and put the first one in, and then we'll demonstrate pulling them apart, and then we'll go ahead and take the second one and put the second one in. Alright, so 15 minutes have passed by. We're ready to go ahead and take our headlight out of the oven. Now the headlight itself you can have sit out for a couple of minutes here, but you are going to want to work relatively fast because you don't want the headlight to start cooling down, and you don't want the tabs or the silicone in there to start solidifying. You don't really need to, but I'm going to wear gloves for this just in case. Some of the metal parts can be pretty warm. Again, you know, since we've taken out most of the bolts, there shouldn't be a lot of metal parts. But I'm going to go ahead and use this flathead screwdriver here to coax the tabs up and help pull the lens away from the housing. And, you know, just be careful throughout the process here. You don't want to hurt your headlight. You don't want to pull it all apart too fast, or you do risk damaging it. Okay, that's most of the tabs right there. So we're going to start pulling the headlight apart here. Just be careful, because the silicone that comes off is going to come off real stringy. You're not going to want to get it on the clear portion of your headlight. You're also not going to want to get it on the reflectors either. I'm going to just put it on its back here and lift up and away. Okay, so you can see here we've got a couple of stringy parts. Since I've got my gloves on, I can just grab and pull and get rid of it. There we go. Completely separated, nice and flawlessly. We didn't hurt any of the tabs. We didn't get any sort of silicone on any of our on any of the clear parts, and we didn't get it on the reflectors either. So that came apart pretty well. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to set this to the side for a minute and let it start cooling down. Then we're going to go ahead and put the second one in. When you're removing the four bolts from right here. Just be very careful because again you don't want to break any of the plastic tabs on here that you're going to need to have there for the remounting process. Okay, now with that taken care of, now that we've gotten the actual housings that we're going to be painting out of the headlights, we're good to start prepping on them. Now, before you actually pull out your paint and start painting these, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to scuff them up pretty good with an 800 to a 1000 grit sandpaper. And what that's going to do is make little indents basically in the actual material itself, and that's going to allow the paint to adhere to the surfaces. If you don't do it, you'll end up with an orange peel like coverage, or you won't end up with coverage in some places, or the actual finish itself is not going to be very durable, and potentially you know, after a couple of months of use it could start flaking off, it could start coming apart under the heat and whatnot. So definitely make sure that you're trying to get in all the little nooks and crannies that you possibly can. Okay, let's go ahead and start sanding. Now, something to be careful about too when you're sanding these is to make sure you're very careful about the bridge here with between the reflector and the actual housing itself, because this joint right here and here are very fragile, and if you put much pressure on it, it could potentially crack. So just be cognizant of that when you're actually sanding on it. Just be careful not to put any pressure on it. Now, the thing you're going to find about projects like this is that they're only really as good, or they only look as good as the prep work that you put into them. So if you're going to take the time to do this, I really suggest, you know, taking the time to do the prep work properly. And by that I mean, you know, be thorough when you're sanding, and then after you complete sanding, typically what I like to do is I'll take a little bit of denatured alcohol, put it on a shop rag, and I'll just kind of briefly wipe down, you know, everything that I went over. And what that's going to do is that's going to take any excess dust or anything that you left off of the housing there, so you're not going to have a bunch of you know, debris stuck under your paint. And I like to do this, you know, once, and it sterilizes the area so that it, you know, creates a better place for, or contact surface for your paint. It gets everything clean. So, like you can see right there, we've got a lot of dirt that came off of that. So, you know, if we hadn't done this, have all of that stuck under there. So, now you can really be as thorough as you like with this whole process, but chances are that when you're sanding and whatnot, there are going to be some areas that you're going to miss, and so to give your paint the best possible chance of adhering to the surface, what I like to use is a Bulldog adhesion promoter. And essentially what that does is it makes a good, it acts kind of like a primer, and it makes a good area for your paint to actually stick to. So I do highly recommend using an adhesion promoter before you go too much farther with this, just because there are areas that you won't be able to hit with the chrome and whatnot that you know, could potentially flake in the future, and you obviously you want a good, you know, product, good finished product when you're done with this. And so, you know, I definitely recommend using something like this prior to actually using your spray paint. You know, and just do your best with this to kind of get it in the creases and the smaller areas where you could potentially get some of that flaking with your paint. Okay, our first coat is on right over the adhesion promoter. I went with a relatively light coat. It might look a little bit heavy on the video there, but you know, I've got probably about 50 to 60% coverage on it. You can still see through it pretty much everywhere. But you know, you want to lay down basically a nice lighter base coat first that your later coats can adhere to. You start with a light coat, and then, you know, go with maybe 2 medium coats after that until you're sure that you've got full coverage. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, I just finished my third coat on the headlight housings, and you know, it looks like I've got about 100% coverage now. Really nothing is showing as far as the chrome or the amber is concerned, so I think we're in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just leave the enamel to dry for 24 hours and come back tomorrow and see how it looks. If we need to put another coat on, we can do so at that time. We can continue to let it dry, or we can go ahead and we can reinstall them. So let's go ahead and see how it looks. Alright guys, so we've let our housing sit for about 24 hours now. We've let the paint set up nicely, and here's our final result. So you can see it turned out pretty good. Again, I was using a Rust-Oleum gloss paint, and I was using Bulldog Adhesion Promoter. I was not using primer on this, but it looks like it's set up pretty well. There's not a lot of orange peel in it. There's not a lot of inconsistencies in the paint, so I'll be excited to actually put this on my car when we get the housings back together again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the parts of the headlight and put them back into the oven again, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this back where it was before and press the lenses together again. And by putting them in the oven again, you can make that silicone pliable and make it easy to work with and get a nice seal on there. Now most of the time you're not going to have to add any additional silicone to it. Most of the time there is additional silicone, or there's enough silicone in the housings already that you won't need to make any sort of changes there. However, if you've done this a couple of times, or you're feeling like there's not enough coverage with the silicone, I do recommend using a window and door silicone. I use a GE black silicone. It's very similar to the stock stuff that you would find in the headlight. It sets up very nicely and creates a very similar finish to the other stuff, and it lasts forever too. If you get one of these, it'll probably last you the rest of your life. Alright guys, so now we're ready to put the actual headlight back together again. And what I've done is I've taken the reassembled lens and housing bit, and then I put the rear housing back onto and connected everything right back up again. And in the case of my headlights, I still have plenty of silicone down in the channel here, so I was able to just go ahead and press them back together. And while they're in the oven here, I don't want them to fall apart, so just for a little extra precaution, I went ahead and took 2 screws and actually put them in after I pressed the headlight or lens and the housing assembly back together again. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep the housing from potentially falling apart while it's in the oven. So just a little extra safety right there. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I've preheated the oven again to 220 degrees. We're going to put it in for 15 minutes, which will allow that silicone to soften back up again. And then once we get it out of the oven, we're going to go ahead and press it together, and then we'll go ahead and tighten down the screws, and we'll let the entire assembly cool down a little bit, and then we'll put the last of the screws in, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other headlight. And then we'll be ready to put them back in again. Now that they're out of the oven, just push them apart and they should click into the tabs. Now just make sure that you've got all of the screws back in place here while the headlight is still warm. Alright guys, now the headlight housings are back together again and in one piece, and so now all I've got to do is I've got to go ahead and put back in the headlights that we've got before, put the ballast back on again, and then they'll be ready to put in the car. So I'm going to go ahead and put these together, and then we'll go ahead and put them in. Well, we're ready to go now. We're ready to reinstall the headlights. I've got all of the bulbs put back in again. We've got the ballast put back on. Everything is ready to go there. All the last of the bolts are in and everything. And I went ahead and used a little bit of Goo Gone on the lens itself, because I did get a little bit of silicone on the outside of the lens just from my gloves that I was using. But Goo Gone cleaned it right up, no problem. So the actual headlights are ready to be installed in the car. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. It's a little bit late out right now, so I probably won't be able to get a good shot of it till the morning. But what will take me an entire night to see, you'll be able to see like that. Alright guys, the headlights are all done. I hope that this helps you in your own project. Definitely post up your own results, and if you have any questions or comments, go visit our website at my6subaru.com. Thanks so much for watching.